AI continues to change the world that we live in, and especially in wealth management, and now even in estate planning. And to talk about that, we have Danny Lohrfink from wealth.com, who specializes in providing estate planning technology utilizing AI. Hi, I'm Chris Reynolds, and I'm on a mission to help independent financial advisors build a better business through a remarkable client experience. In this podcast, you're going to learn how to do that from my conversations with the visionaries, the leaders, the independent advisors who are reshaping the future of the financial advice industry. At the end of each episode, you're going to walk away with an actionable idea that you can take and use right now, and it will help you to build a better business today. This is Turning the Page. On this show, we often talk about technology and how advisors around the world are harnessing these new tools to make life easier, not only for themselves, but of course for their clients. You know, we've talked about how AI tools in one of the episodes that we had, how they can help you from everything from marketing to the financial plan to really almost every interaction that you have with your client. And this kind of technology is really expanding quickly. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that on the show. So today we're going to dig into one of the important aspects of financial planning, of course, which is estate planning. And yet, even in estate planning, even at the end of people's lives, technology is helping to make that process of handling that for the family even easier. So I'm pretty happy to bring on today, we have Danny Lohrfink. He is the co-founder and chief product officer of wealth.com, and they're out of Phoenix, Arizona. And it's sort of the wealth management's leading estate planning platform. You know, they have over 400 firms that use it. It's a pretty comprehensive, sophisticated estate planning solutions for their clients. And everyone knows, and we've talked about the show many, many times, everybody now, and especially people who have money, estate planning is one of their biggest priorities. They've accumulated money, and one of the questions that always comes up is, how do I get my money to future generations? And as chief product officer, Danny's responsible for all the product-related activities, strategy, execution. And before he came to wealth.com, Danny was business lead for SoFi Wealth Management Division. You know, he was at Goldman Sachs, private wealth management, so he knows about high net worth clients. And most recently, Danny was vice president of PWM Management team, where he's responsible for leading the strategic projects and initiatives. He's a standing member of the operational experience group and the client experience group. So in other words, here's a guy who knows a lot about this. He knows a lot about estate planning. He knows a lot about high net worth people, but more importantly, he knows a lot about technology and bringing all these things together. So welcome, Danny. I'm pretty excited about all the things we're going to talk about. But when we start with your story, let's start with, how did you get here? And I know I went through your basic bio here, but I think there's a little bit of things that you could fill in there.
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. Excited to be on the podcast here. So first and foremost, when I was growing up, I never thought that I was going to be operating in the estate planning space. I also told myself that I was never going to work for a large bank. Fast forward, after graduating college, I worked for Goldman Sachs, and now I'm a large product officer and a co-founder of an estate planning business. My parents, they're both lawyers, and so that was actually the impetus for me saying I am going to stay far away from the legal profession. Don't get me wrong, I love working with lawyers. I just never wanted to be one myself. Right. But yeah, I guess it all has now come together here. So, I mean, my story, I started my career at Goldman Sachs. I was in the private wealth business, started out on a $12 billion team out in Los Angeles. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you think about that ultra high net worth business that Goldman's operating. $12 billion managed by just 11 individuals.
That's incredible.
Four primary private wealth advisors. But that's just the scale that you're working with when you're working with primarily billion-dollar clients, right? So was on that team for a number of years before moving over to the management side of the private wealth organization at Goldman. As you alluded to in the preface there, right. I led a lot of the strategic projects and initiatives. I then went over to SoFi, and I was running the brokerage business over there, and then came to wealth.com. Now, one of the reasons why starting wealth.com was so top of mind and a passion for me was across all those various institutions that I worked at, SoFi, mainly dealing with retail clients, and then Goldman Sachs, the ultra high net worth folks, the richest of the rich. estate planning was a need across the board, but there just wasn't really a tangible way for financial advisors and for the wealth institution to be able to deliver value to the end client. It was always disconnected between the estate planning function and then the rest of the planning function.
Which is weird because, as I started with, every high net worth person that I know and I talk about, they don't talk about necessarily their investments. They talk about their family. They talk about their kids. They talk about their grandkids. These are their passion. And so you've probably seen that, that demand and sort of meet it. So how has technology changed the estate planning model from what it has traditionally been?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on there. People are typically thinking about their holistic wealth in terms of what it actually can do for them, not just like the dollar value of it. I mean, estate planning fundamentally is just everything that like you have oversight over and then creating a plan for that. So like your estate is your assets, of course, but then like you also have oversight if your kids are minors, like over your kids, over your pets. And so like creating a plan for what happens if like you're no longer around to those things that you have oversight over is the estate plan. So first and foremost, your book of business, if you're a financial advisor, is rarely totally homogenous. Like you're going to have clients that are at different stages along their estate planning journey. And so you might have clients that just like need to get set up with an estate plan. Historically, your only option was either to go to a trust and estate attorney, which is going to rack up thousands of dollars, and like the opportunity cost for a client might not really be there, where they're looking at like paying a $5,000 mortgage bill and they don't want to then repurpose those dollars into like creating a trust that they don't think they're going to need anytime soon because they don't think that they're going to die, right? You also have clients, and by the way, 66% of Americans just like don't even. So
yeah, I was going to say, it's one of those things that it's not going to happen to me. That what's the stat? We get one death per person per lifetime. You got a 100% chance of using it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I'm going to use that moving forward. So yeah, I mean, you've got clients that like don't have any estate plan. You got to get them set up with one. You also have clients that have outdated estate plans that they set up 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and like if you ask them what's the structure there, they don't have no idea.
Like something. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know. I took care of it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. So like, has anything changed? Oh, you moved from New York down to Florida. Congrats on the move. Don't you realize that Florida has a whole new set of laws related to estate planning than New York does? Should probably get that updated. And then you have clients that like they have their estate plans totally buttoned up. They have the alphabet soup of estate planning. From the ILIS to the SLATs to the GRATs to the CRUTs, everything. And that's great, but they don't understand how it all operates. They don't understand the interconnectivity. And so breaking it down in a more demystified way. So again, financial advisors, they have this book of business that is kind of spread out along this estate planning journey. How can you leverage technology to be able to provide the estate planning guidance to them is really where, a firm like wealth.com is coming in. Now, how has the technology evolved over time? Well, like I mentioned, you have the trust and estate attorneys that since the days of Cicero in the Roman Republic, Cicero was like, he's a famous orator, but he was also a lawyer. And so he was actually writing estate plans. But then as technology evolved, and you have the Industrial Revolution and the technology is going on this upward, hockey stick function, you still just had trust and estate attorneys. And they're
nothing,
pen and paper. No, you went from horses to then horse and buggy to then and it keeps going up, but it's still just pen and paper. Really the first true innovation in estate planning, I think, was LegalZoom. And that was on the document creation side of things. That was actually creating legal documents, because what they identified was most of the time, trust and estate attorneys are just using a set of forms and they have their preferred language. And based on the client's circumstance, you either insert this language or don't insert this language.
Right.
If there's, and there's just a decision tree effectively, and there's a number of different permutations. And so if we are able to collect and understand the client's circumstances, we can then match up the permutations to then the provisions to say, all right, here's your document. So that was kind of the first foray, but LegalZoom, it's only been around over the past 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And obviously now things have progressed at the clip that all technology is progressing. I mean, the iPhone hasn't been around for more than 15 years, right? You imagine where we are today, and where can technology take us over the next 20 years? Our brains can't even comprehend that.
Right.
What will AI be able to open up for not just the estate planning and the legal space, but for all industries? That's what a lot of people are grappling with, and that's why you see NVIDIA stock skyrocketing. So happy to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But now, some advisors and their clients, they're hesitant about using these tools. To your point, traditionalists, they think of estate planning, to your point, pen and paper, a bunch of documents, put them in a file, put them in a drawer, forget about them.
Yeah.
Why? Why are they so hesitant?
The reason why they're so hesitant is because there has been for so long just a single precedent. And so if you're going back and like, this is the way that it's always been done, to then change off of that is difficult, which always hits a breaking point when you think about the technology curve adoption. You have just a simple bell curve, and you have the early adopters, and then you have your laggards, right? There are many financial advisors that actually have no hesitation, that have jumped straight in to adopting technologies to help deliver the estate planning function to their clients, because their clients are looking at them saying, hey, you manage my holistic wealth picture? Like, okay, great. So like, what are you going to do for me? You're going to deliver me that family office experience, right? The financial planning, the tax planning, the estate planning. So they're like, look, I got to do this. I have to jump in. And so what can I adopt today? And so those are the earlier adopters, but we're still at the early stages of the adoption of estate planning technology. You know, the hesitation that we see most often at wealth.com is, hey, I'm not a trust and estate attorney. I don't want to be perceived as practicing law, right? But I still want to facilitate estate planning for my clients. You know, where do I fit into the equation? And that's really where a company like wealth.com comes in, because we play that middleman. We play that bridge, giving the tools to be able to deliver the estate planning function to the clients, whether that's creating the estate planning documents, or it's visualizing existing estate plans, or running scenario analysis to understand, you know, the impact of introducing a slat or a brat, but always delivering also that layer of separation where the advisor appropriately feels like, hey, I'm just operating within a tool like an eMoney or a Money Guide Pro for financial planning, but on the flip side, for estate planning.
So now you generally work with American advisors, right? You're companies out of Phoenix and stuff, and involved in this space for some time. What sort of things do you think could be applicable up here in Canada? Like, certainly estate planning is as big of an issue here as it is anywhere else. So maybe how do you sort of contrast that, and what should Canadian advisors do, and can they utilize some of the tools that you've mentioned?
First and foremost, going back to what a estate is, again, it's everything that you have oversight over. And so then, you know, estate plan is like the plan for what happens to those assets. There's obviously a tax component there as well, trying to optimize for taxes. In the United States, we have 50 states and Washington, D.C., and there are different tax regimes. There are different, local laws that you need to stay on top of. While in Canada, the same thing applies. You guys have different jurisdictions as well. So there are absolutely tools that are available to you to be able to help facilitate this process, ranging from the document creation side of things, all the way to then the visualization components. The visualization components, I think, are really important because the majority of folks that have estate plans today, they have them in that binder, it's on the shelf. And as the advisor, your role and responsibility is fundamentally to help your clients think through their goals and objectives. And how can you possibly help them think through their goals and objectives on the financial planning side if you don't know what the end game is? And so, got to walk back the cat, understand what the end game is. And so use those visual tools to bring their documents to life. Show them how things will flow. Show them who is going to be serving in various capacities within their estate plan. Discuss with them if they want to make any updates based on how their life has evolved over the past 10 to 15 years. And then revisit on the document creation side of the house. And so really think about it as an integrated approach where you walk back the cat from what they have today and then say, do we need to make any updates based on the changes to your life circumstances? Those tools certainly do exist within Canadian jurisdictions. I won't speak to the specifics because, but encourage you to check them out. And they've made the lives of financial advisors much easier because rather than having to operate in PowerPoint or Excel to bring these visual reports to life, it is much more automated. Rather than having to read every single word of an estate planning document to understand the nuances from what is within, they have technology to extract the key information. Rather than having to ship off to a trust and estate attorney in Toronto to create the will or to create the trust, they have document creation functions to be able to get the documents set up, not within a course of weeks, but actually within the course of just minutes.
Right, which is pretty amazing, right? Because that also was one of their big, reasons that people are hesitant to go through. They think it's going to be such a hassle and so many players, and that can be overwhelming to a lot of people. Now, the other thing that's coming up, and we've talked about this on the show quite a bit, is how artificial intelligence is impacting technology in estate planning and wealth management firms. And you'd be in a good position to maybe comment on what some of the cool stuff that you're seeing coming out of that area.
Yeah. AI is nothing to be afraid of right now.
Yeah,
I'm not making any judgment on the long-term implications of.
I don't know. I've seen those Terminator movies.
Yeah. I'm not making a judgment on like sentience of AI, but right now, it is nothing to be afraid of. You have different technologies that exist within the AI realm, and Wealth.com in particular, what we're using AI for is to parse out and read existing estate planning documents. If you think about how a trust and estate attorney may draft a document, it's different from the trust and estate attorney right down the street. Everyone has their own unique flair that they like to add into the documents, their own colloquial verbiage. And that's cool. Like everyone wants to say that they're, the way that they phrase things is better or more unique, but those variations also make it more difficult to read through an estate planning document. If you were trying to read through a tax form, pretty easy. You just know exactly where to point to. You pluck out that number from that box that's at this place on the page. Estate planning document can really, vary greatly, even if the actual contents and the end goal and the end outcome is the exact same, just because of the way that a trust and estate attorney is phrasing it. So the way that Wealth.com is approaching it is we've trained our AI models to understand those various linguistic tendencies and parse through a document and extract if a client has a marital trust, a credit sheltered trust, if there's a limited power of appointment or a general power of appointment, if there's mandatory income distribution, and is that annual or is it quarterly? So we really get pretty detailed. It's not like this very high level, a summary that's in ChatGPT type of format. That's not what we do. We really get into the details with it. And then because we get into the details and we identify these individual data points that exist within a document, we can also instantly feed it into a visual report. So simply, but what you do is, as the advisor, you upload the client's existing will or trust, and within 90 seconds, you not only get back a summary of all the key information, you actually also get a visual report that shows you the construct of the estate plan and how it's all going to flow.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Now, was that Esther? I was reading about this Esther that you guys have created with the AI. Is that what you're describing?
That's exactly right. Esther is our AI technology. A lot of people, they have chatbots. That's cool. We're not, but at Esther,
I have a little person, Esther.
Yeah, exactly. You got your Siris, you got your Esters, you got your Alexas. Yeah. Everyone's got to name their AI. But
never dudes' names though.
No. Maybe men should reflect on that.
I was just thinking about it as you were going through each of the names. Yeah.
Fundamentally, when you think about the role of artificial intelligence, though, the way that we're using it is in that pattern recognition. So if you train the model to understand, here are the various ways to understand how a credit sheltered trust may be phrased within a given document, then over time, the model understands these different variations. It can actually then create new variations on top of it. And so that's a really, it takes the stepwise function to the next level, because what the model can then do is it can say, all right, I have 100 different variations that I know of what a credit shelter trust might look like. Credit shelter trust could also be phrased as a bypass trust, or a family trust, or an exclusion trust. And then it can create new versions of that. Given that it has 100 different variations, it can then mix and match the words so that it now has, instead of 100 variations, it has 20,000 different variations. That's the power of AI, where it's able to quickly learn, adapt, and then generate additional learnings and scale to it. So your learning power is truly exponential. And I mean, when you, again, going back to, the horse and buggy, to where we are today, it took us literally millennium to get from the horse and buggy to then automobiles, and then from automobiles to planes.
Right.
And now we're sitting on planes and we're getting pissed off that there's no Wi-Fi, or the Wi-Fi is cutting out. It's like,
Flying
you
through space.
crazy? Like, yeah, we're in this tin tube, and we're literally able to connect to Wi-Fi. What the heck is Wi-Fi? Like, that's calling to a satellite in outer space. Like, wait, there's something in outer space that man launched up there? Like, all this has happened in the past, 150 years.
Right.
Like, what AI is able to do is it's able to then shorten that half-life, and it's going to keep getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter for the progression of future technologies.
Actually, and that's a really, really good illustration of AI, because you hear it and you read it, and you get questions all, but the way you've described it is exactly what's happening. Many advisors struggle with technology, and they also struggle with the whole concept of estate planning. So this kind of combines it both. So I'd like to have a conversation about how you're going to utilize technology for the needs of your clients, and maybe even how you're approaching estate planning. So if you want to have a virtual coffee, just go to the show notes, click on the link, and we can book something up. Looking forward to talking about business and technology with you. Hey, you've been at this a long time. So if you had to look out into the future, and I think you sort of implied some of this with your last statement, but where do you see it going? Like, if you looked out 3, even 5 years, where do you think it's going, and what should advisors be doing today to get ready for that? Like, I know that there's some playing ostrich, but for the progressive advisor who really wants to serve the client, and especially the wealthy client of the future, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, look, as it applies to the estate planning function, I don't think that AI is going to come into the document drafting realm anytime soon, because the actual words really matter. The specific words are super important. Wealth.com, we create legal documents through our technology, but every single word is typed by a trust and estate attorney. And we have no plans of changing that, because literally a single word moved from beginning of sentence to end of the sentence can completely change the construct of the document and the intention. So it is not a area that I think AI will converge into anytime soon. However, everywhere else around the document creation, AI has the data and the computing power to power, right? So when I say the data and the computing power, I mean, you think about the tax implications of having a ultra high net worth client. In the United States, there is the concept of the federal estate tax exemption threshold. Effectively, what this means is there's a bar, and if the client has assets above that bar, above that rate, they get taxed at a certain tax rate. And so today, it's $13.61 million per individual. Married couple, it's $27.22 million.
Right.
So if the client, let's say it's a single individual, dies with $14.61 million, that means they're $1 million over, and the effective tax rate is about 40%. Okay, so 40% on that overage of $1 million. Meaning $400,000 is going to Uncle Sam.
Crazy.
So how do you optimize for that? Well, you do proper estate planning. And so you move money outside of what's called your taxable estate. When you think about what's your taxable estate, again, back to what you have oversight over, moving money outside of your taxable estate is basically saying, hey, this is no longer like legally under my jurisdiction. So I am going to set up this irrevocable trust. irrevocable means I cannot revoke it, meaning like I'm setting it up, I'm irrevocably putting it over here, and this other person who I'm naming as trustee now has oversight over those assets. And so when we talk about the alphabet soup, it's slats and eyelets,
right,
and these things. But you move these assets outside of your taxable estate, and now no longer are, if you move $1 million outside and you're at that 14.61, now you're back down to 13.61. And so you have $0 above the threshold. You're exactly on the threshold, and therefore $0 times 40% tax rate means you're giving $0 to Uncle Sam. But how much does it cost you to set up that irrevocable trust? Probably just a few $1,000s.
Yeah, I was going to say probably not $400,000.
Not $400,000. So that's also, as an advisor, the tax alpha that you can bring to your clients. And it's almost negligence if you're not thinking about that in the context of their holistic wealth plan, right? Imagine if you did not bring that up to your client, they passed away, and then the heirs, the beneficiaries of that estate are like, hold on a second, you could have made sure that $400,000 more came our way, but instead you weren't thinking about this. That seems a little bit off to us. That's where AI will be able to step in, and you're able to effectively feed it the input function. Here's the client circumstances, scenarios, and then how can we help to optimize this plan moving forward? And then it's going to say, well, it looks like the client has some Bitcoin. It's a highly appreciating asset. You might want to put that Bitcoin into a GRAT. Right now, the GRAT annuity rate is X%. And so you might want to do an annuity term of Y based on these different functions. And so the model will really have this historical list of data from every single estate plan that it's ever been able to get its hands on across the World Wide Web. And then it's able to distill all of that information to then come up with a potential pathway for the client to optimize their plan moving forward. And all that is taking input function, so taking client circumstance and feeding it in. And that's where truly, our technology, and I think most technology, is going to go on the estate planning side, of course, as I'm alluding to, but on the tax planning side, on the financial planning side, all around the wealth management realm.
Yeah, again, a good illustration, and also the good illustration of the importance of financial or estate planning within the all-over financial plan. Like the illustration of, now it's U.S. versus Canada, but Canada, we got our taxes. Tell me, we got our problems up here. But $400,000 by identifying an issue and taking care of it, and very often, by the way, that's ignored in the whole plan because, to your point, it's complex. And I think your technology and, utilizing of AI can help not only identify it, but come up with solutions. And that, to me, is real value you are creating for a client. Like, you can invest their money and do great, but $400,000 is $400,000. And that's just one simple illustration. So, Danny, I think this is great. So this has been a lot of great information. I think everyone's going to love this, but I don't know if you've listened to the show, but I also do the 3 questions at the end. And I'm going to ask you 3 different questions, and sort of the first thing that pops in your mind. And the first question is, what are you most passionate about?
What I'm most passionate about today is looking at the feedback that we receive as a business from the advisors that we work with and our clients, and seeing the actual impact that we have. That fuels my drive to continue to do what we're doing on the estate planning side, and delivering it to more advisors, more end clients. And specifically what I'm going to call out for you, Chris, is 2 days ago, we received an email. It was an unfortunate email, but it was also a heartwarming one, because the email said, "Thank you so much for getting my client set up with the trust document. We were back and forth with an attorney for literally 3 weeks. My client, they just recently got checked into MD Anderson, and unfortunately, a week and a half later, they passed away. But the client's who unfortunately passed away, spouse reached out and thanked the advisor for getting it across the finish line, getting the trust all set up before the client passed away. And frankly, they just couldn't get a call back from the attorney in time to get everything set up before the client passed away. Getting that type of email to say, thank you for having this service available, it really fuels my overall passion for what we do. I think to have a true purpose feels really good, to really understand that you're providing tangible, I think value in this case is almost like a word that you can't really wrap your arms around, because it's not value. it's a tangible human impact on people. Right. And frankly, that's why I think we come to work every day here at wealth.com feeling so passionate about what we do.
I love it. And that's what creates passion. Actually, you answered my second question, which is your impactful client interaction. So I'm going to skip over that one now and go to what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Be inquisitive. And what that was, it wasn't in the context of be inquisitive about like the world around you. It was more like, hey, something is presented to you. Be curious about why and ask the why question and then go a layer deeper. I think it's really helped me in my life and my career to really uncover a lot of the gaps, but also to prepare. People say the combination of luck plus preparation plus opportunity or whatever it is equals success. And asking the why, being genuinely curious and inquisitive about it has allowed me to prepare for those scenarios where then luck has presented itself. I always found when I was at Goldman that the true differentiator between someone who's really successful at Goldman Sachs versus someone that, kind of just skated by was the folks that went a step deeper, that looked at the facts being presented and then reached out to that expert for a follow-up call and tried to understand the underlying nuances as opposed to just taking the face value headline. And it takes extra work, but ultimately it does make your life easier too, because then you start to see the connective tissue between a lot of things. You start to see not just these like seemingly disparate headlines that may exist in the world, but you start to see the connectivity and the points of intersection. And that can only be identified if you're genuinely curious and inquisitive about the why.
Right. And my favorite type of people are the curious people, the people who do ask a lot of questions. I think it's everyone's favorite people. And I think it's a great piece of advice. So Danny, this has been great. Danny from wealth.com. So if somebody wanted to pursue and find out more about what you do, what's the best way for them to do that?
Part of having the domain name wealth.com is it's easy to remember. So of course you can.
It does sound straightforward, but yeah, there might be others to it. But yeah.
That's right. So you can go to wealth.com. Of course, we have a lot of information on our website. You can also reach out to sales@wealth.com, who can help you get set up with a demonstration of the capabilities of the technology. Again, the technology, it really helps advisors and their clients, no matter where the client is on their estate planning journey, from the creation of the legal documents all the way to the visualization and scenario analyses of highly complex estate plans. So if you are an advisor that has US-based clients that have any bit of estate planning needs, which I think is every single advisor.
Everybody,
please feel free to reach out to us.
No, that's fantastic. And to the point, and I'm glad that you're on the show, it really illustrates, again, the importance of estate planning within a financial planning practice. Like that really should be one of the big things. And this topic continues to grow and grow as demographics, of course, we continue to age, and if people who have a lot of money continue to age, this becomes one of the most critical things of the financial plan. So thank you very much for being part of the show, Danny. You've been a great guest. Any final words for our audience?
Thank you, Chris. This has been great. One thing that I'll say is the estate plan, it is the bookend to any good financial plan. So if you're helping a client think through their financial plan, you got to know what that end game is. So think about the estate plan, embed it as part of your overall practice. The benefits to you are not just related to your current client base, but you can also use estate planning as a really good prospecting tool. We see it all the time, embedded as part of your prospecting function as well, where you're helping clients either get set up with estate plans or thinking through the contents of their existing estate plans. That's taking it to the next level for a client who has probably heard the Sharpe ratio spiel plenty of times over, and you can actually differentiate yourself by taking this other route.
That's fantastic. So Danny Lohrfink from wealth.com, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on Turning the Page. What did you learn from today's episode? If you follow me on LinkedIn, please drop me a comment there. I'd love to chat with you about it over virtual coffee. Send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can do so at our website. The link's in the show notes. I'm Chris Reynolds, and until next time.